Hello again. As you can deduce from my decor and possibly my bat and my witch hat hair clips, it is mid-October. So that means there's about 2.5 more months of the year. But I've seen a trend going around that is people talking about their 10 before the end. So the 10 books that they want to read before the year is over. Will I have time for 10 books? Maybe not. I am in grad school, I'm student teaching. I probably don't have time to read 10 books, especially since a couple of these are pretty long. But these are the books that I will try to read by the end of the year. There's a couple that I absolutely will, and then as the list goes on, the possibility kind of lingers. I'm thinking I'll at least get through 6 of these. But these are the 10 books that I plan to read for the rest of the year. So I just wanted to tell you guys about books I'm excited to read, that this will hold me accountable and I will read as many of them as possible. So there are a couple facets here. First, I am in a book club with my library. So there's 2 more meetings for the rest of the year. So 2 of the books are dedicated to my book club. I have to read those. And then I have 2 that I just want to read this fall time. And I talked about a little bit in my fall recommendations and fall TBR video that I posted a couple weeks ago. Then I have some Russian books because I typically prioritize Russian classics in the winter to set the mood for myself. And then also I just want to get to some more John Steinbeck. So there's just a couple things on this list that are really important for me personally to get to. So let's get started. The first book that I am reading with my book club is Miss Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. And as you can tell, I have tabs on this already and really bad sun damage on, on a lot of it. But I tried to read this book before. I got about halfway through it, and even though it's pretty short, I could not stand this book when I tried to read it a couple years ago. I thought it was so dull. I thought that the whole time it felt like we were just walking to the flower store for like 100 pages, and I just didn't get it. But that was a couple years ago, and I feel like I have more refined taste and a more refined brain these days. So I think that now I can handle something that's stream of consciousness like this. But it kind of just is about a lady walking to the flower store, and then she talks to some old lovers. I don't know. Virginia Woolf is allegedly one of the greats, so I'm glad that this book club is forcing me to read this book once again, or to try again. The next book I don't have a copy of yet because I will be checking it out with my library, but I'll put a picture up here. This one is called Coming Through Slaughter. And this one is semi-fictional. It's written about Buddy Bolden, but this is actually based on a other forgotten jazz great, I think trumpet, but this is jazzy and set in New Orleans, you know, kind of as the jazz age was beginning. And I think that it's supposed to be kind of structurally unique in the way that, you know, this guy starts to kind of unravel and go a little bit crazy with all this art that he's creating. And so as he's going a little bit crazy, I think the narrative starts to kind of shatter a little bit. I'm very interested in this one. And so I'm very glad my book club is putting me on. The next 2 books that I want to get to are Russian classics. And as I said in the beginning, or in the intro of this video, I really like to prioritize Russian literature in the winter because I'm setting the cold, snowy, you know, vibes that a Russian book deserves. So I like to read these when it's cold outside. So one of those 2, and my most prioritized read, I will probably read this in December, I'm thinking. I want to get to Anna Karenina. Leo Tolstoy is one of the greats. I mean, him and Dostoevsky are like the biggest, most spoken about to this day. But Tolstoy also wrote War and Peace, which I'm hoping to get to next year. We'll see about that. That one's also very long, but this is like 1,000 pages of just family drama, and it's set around this one messy woman, Anna Karenina. This is one that has been very high on my anticipated reads for a very long time, but I've held it off because I was waiting for the right time, and I think the right time is now. And this one, Dostoevsky's Gambler, this is lower on the priority list. I'm hoping that I can get to it because this is 3 stories in here. It is The Gambler, Babok, and A Nasty Story. I'm hoping to get to this, but this is one that might be on the fringes of the 10 before the end. But if I have time, and I hope that I do, I would really like to read all 3 of these stories, but particularly The Gambler. The Gambler is semi-autobiographical because Dostoevsky had a really big problem with gambling and debt. So this was written under some really intense personal pressure, but it is largely set around this main character, I think Alexei, and he has a gambling problem, and he's this really destructive love with this really manipulative woman. So that sounds awesome. And then the second story in here, Babok. This is wherever a man starts to hear voices from the dead in the cemetery, and it's absurd life after death. I'm not really sure. And then A Nasty Story I've never heard of before until I bought this edition. So I don't know, but I'm hoping to get through these 3 when I have the chance. I hope so. I have read a couple John Steinbeck books this year. I read Of Mice and Men, and I read East of Eden, which I posted a review about a couple weeks ago, because once I read East of Eden, John Steinbeck instantly became one of my favorite authors of all time. So I'm hoping to get to a little more John Steinbeck this year. First off, I just thrifted this yesterday and I was very excited about it. Travels with Charley. This is John Steinbeck traveling across America with his dog, Charley. So this is, memoir style. And then also, and I'll probably have time for this because this is the shortest book ever, but I also would like to get to The Pearl. Now, I had to read this, I think, when I was 15, I had to read this for a class, and I remember just being violently sick to my stomach thinking about this one. This one really lingers with you weird. It is about this family who finds this really huge and really expensive and really valuable pearl, and it just turns the whole family wicked because, now this poor family has money and it pits them against each other. This book is, I remember it being sickening, but I read it 8-10 years ago, so I would like to get into this little tiny one when I'm feeling like a quick read. These next 2 I talked about in my fall video where I talked about the books I'm going to read this fall and also some fall book recommendations. So these are the 2 books that I still have remaining off that list. I am in the middle of 2666. Very cool, very bizarre, weird cover. But this is 5 interconnected stories, or it's supposed to be 5 novels in one. And it is all of these interconnected stories connect in this Mexican border city. I have read the first 2 books already. The first was about a group of 4 book critics who really, really, really liked this one German author, and so they just kind of obsessed over it, and this obsession was their breath. And then the second story was just, I guess it was supposed to be the worries of the common man, but it was this man who moved him and his daughter to this border city, but it's dangerous for young women, so he kind of thinks on that. Second story was a bit weaker. The first story was amazing. So I'm loving this book so far, but it is definitely going to take me a while. This is a very big book. And then the last book that I have on my fall TBR that I'm planning to read this month, hopefully, is The Turn of the Screw. Again, super cool cover, and obviously you have to read this for Halloween. So this is about a governess who believes that the 2 children that she's watching over are haunted by the ghosts of, I think, past employees. But she's kind of going crazy, but you can't really tell, I suppose, with the narrative if she's really crazy or if there's actually ghosts. So I think that this will be a very fun one to read right before Halloween. Hopefully I have time. And the last two books on this list are definitely the ones kind of on the fringes. I'm less likely to read these, but I still very much want to get to the two of these. First off, we have Hamnet. This has a movie coming out, I think at the end of November, and so obviously I would like to read the book and then watch the movie. That would be super fun. So hopefully I get to this in November. We'll see. But Hamnet, this is kind of like a fictionalized telling of Shakespeare's family. It's set in the Black Death. The Black Death is creeping in. And it's mostly set around Shakespeare's wife, Agnes. But I guess Agnes, Shakespeare's wife, really takes on a strong, powerful role as mother and wife in Shakespeare's family. It seems magical, and I would like to watch the movie. So I want to get to Hamnet next month. And the last book that I hope to get to in this 10 before the end is North Woods. I got this for Christmas last year, so I would like to read it before the next Christmas arrives. So North Woods, the premise of this one is very bizarre. So I think a husband and wife, go to this cabin in the woods. And this is set in a Puritan colony. So this was a long time ago. But this one also has this magical feeling to it because weird things start to show up at their door. Like in English soldier, destined for glory, abandons the battlefields of the New World to devote himself to growing apples. Then a pair of spinsters twins navigate war and famine, envy and desire. A crime reporter unearths an ancient mass grave, but only to discover that the earth refuses to give up its secrets. A lovelorn painter, a sinister con man, a stalking panther, a lusty beetle. All sorts of things are showing up at their front door. So this one, again, I think will be very, very interesting. And I'm hoping that I get to it this year. So those are the 10 books that I'm hoping to get to by the end of the year. I read probably on average maybe 4 books a month, depending on their size. Some of these are obviously very much larger than others. But so I give myself maybe 8 more books for the rest of the year. We'll see. I'm hoping that I get to all 10. I'm going to try to stick to this. But I hope that maybe some of the premises of these books sounded interesting to you and maybe you want to join me in reading them before the year is over. But long story short, I just wanted to tell you guys about what I plan to read for the rest of the year. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next weekend. Bye.